China has built a 5,000-room quarantine center for overseas arrivals. It could be the first of many as countries around the world reopen borders and loosen coronavirus restrictions. Beijing is doubling down on its zero-COVID strategy. The latest example, a $260 million, 5,000-room quarantine facility for incoming travelers set to open in the southern metropolis of Guangzhou in the coming days. Comprised of rows of three-story buildings topped with grey roofs in traditional Chinese style, the massive complex spans an area the size of 46 football fields, and took less than 3 months to be built from scratch on the outskirts of the city. Already, the manufacturing hub of Dongguan, about an hour's drive from Guangzhou, is building its own international health station, with 2,000 rooms. Further south, the technology hub of Shenzhen is also planning for such a facility. This is not just a stopgap measure. Hold the view that this pandemic is going to take a while to end, and China is going to continue this strict control of its borders, Huang said. Facilities like this serve as a way to institutionalize the zero-tolerance strategy. But the virus has repeatedly breached China's defenses. In May, the highly infectious Delta variant caused an outbreak in the southern province of Guangdong, including in Guangzhou and Shenzhen. At that time, Guangdong was receiving 90% of all overseas travelers entering China, with about 30,000 people quarantined in its 300 centralized facilities on a daily basis, according to a provincial health official.
The project kicked off quickly, with more than 4,000 workers assigned to the construction site. The facility was completed earlier this month, and a first batch of 184 medical staff moved in last week to prepare for its official launch. China's move to tighten quarantine measures for overseas arrivals comes as a growing list of countries open up. Last week, the United States announced it would ease travel restrictions on all fully vaccinated foreign visitors starting in November. But on Chinese social media, calls are growing for authorities to lengthen quarantine for overseas arrivals. Many blamed Chinese travelers returning from abroad for bringing the virus to China, especially following the latest outbreak in the southern province of Fujian. Initially, experts advising the government identified a man who returned from Singapore more than a month ago as the likely source of the outbreak, despite him having completed 21 days of quarantine on arrival, during which he tested negative for the virus a total of 9 times. The average incubation period for the Delta variant is about 4 days. Later, health experts walked back that theory, saying the man was likely to have picked up the virus during centralized quarantine instead. But the clarification did little to calm online calls for tougher quarantine requirements. Guangzhou's new quarantine facility will open just in time for the China Import and Export Fair, which begins October 15th. The biannual event, also known as the Canton Fair, is China's largest trade exposition, typically attracting tens of thousands of companies from around the world. Nevertheless, authorities in Guangzhou have stepped up quarantine requirements for all overseas arrivals, raising their mandatory quarantine from 14 days to 21 days. Huang, the expert at the Council on Foreign Relations, says despite its enormous size, the facility would likely not be big enough to hold all foreign arrivals. Just think about it. One international flight typically carries 300 people. They all need to be quarantined and stay at least 21 days. It's going to fill up quickly, he said. COVID cat's demise when Leo, a 28-year-old in China's Harbin city, tested positive for COVID-19 last week. She left enough food and water at home for her 3 cats before entering hospital quarantine, she told state-run outlet Beijing News. She trusted that community workers would come by her apartment to care for her pets while she was away. Instead, when the cats also tested positive for the virus, the workers euthanized all 3 without her consent, according to Beijing News, which only identified Leo by surname. Leo was told Monday her cat's samples had tested positive for the virus, and that putting them down was the only option because there is no available treatment for animal infection. Leo pushed back and refused to sign a consent form for euthanasia, according to Beijing News. By the next day, the 3 cats had been put down anyway. Animals in different countries have contracted COVID-19, including domestic pets, zoo animals and farmed species, with humans the primary source of these infections. But although scientists say COVID-19 likely originated in animals before becoming widespread among humans, there is no evidence that animals are playing a significant role in the spread of the virus to people, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Lu's story went viral on the strictly censored Chinese social media platform Weibo, with a related hashtag gaining more than 14 million views. Users were divided, with pet owners and sympathizers outraged, while others viewed the euthanasia as a sensible choice during the pandemic. The pandemic situation is so serious abroad, but have you ever heard of a report that even one pet has been euthanized? One Weibo user commented. For families with pets, pets are family. Why? I don't understand why people are criticizing the country, another user wrote. In fact, the treatment of COVID-19 patients was provided by the state with a lot of money and effort, and medical staff are also at risk of infection. I don't understand why everyone asks the country to spend so much manpower, materials, and financial resources on pet treatment.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.